webinar is part of our Back to Basic series. As many of you may be aware, we have been doing a series of webinars around some of the fundamentals pertaining to the Great Place to Work assessment and certification process. And in our earlier two webinars, of course, we did focus more on the model and the framework of evaluation. Today's topic is very interesting. We have picked up what are some of the common notions and misconceptions that people have around the Great Place to Work assessment. And some of those we will aim to, of course, cover in the course of our session. So, our session today will be divided in three parts. First and foremost, we will be looking at what is the assessment and certification process that Great Place to Work follows. Many of you, while signing up for the webinar, requested for me to cover this. So I will very briefly give an overview of what the process entails and what's the framework like that any organization has to undergo. Post that, I will talk about what are some of the common myths and misconceptions pertaining the process. So for a lot of you that have been deliberating within your organizations on undertaking this will possibly help you arrive at a decision faster. And towards the end, we will also leave some time for a Q&A. So each of you will have a Q&A tab that is available to you at the bottom of your Zoom app. Ensure that you key in your questions as we go along the session. And we will attempt answering each and every one of them as far as possible. If there are any questions for some reason we may not be able to answer towards the end of the webinar, we'll be happy to take that with you offline and we'll share our coordinates for you to do so as well. So without further ado, let's get started with what we have in store for today. So for those of you who are not very familiar with Great Place to Work, just by way of introduction, we are the world's premier organization in the space of workplace culture. Over the last 3 decades, we've been working across 97 countries to really help organizations create a culture that is high trust and high performance. And our mission is largely to help build a better world by helping organizations create a great place to work culture. In India, of course, we've been privileged to work with close to 1,500 organizations annually and across industries. And what we have found is any organization, no matter the size, no matter the industry, can become a great place to work. Since many of you asked, how is it that we really ascertain whether an organization is a great place to work or not? I will briefly want to talk about what is the framework or the method we use to evaluate organizations as part of our assessment. So as many of you may be aware, the framework that we follow is a dual lens framework or a dual methodology, where first and foremost, we want to look at what is the experience of employees in the organization. In other words, do employees feel that they're part of a great place to work or not? And how do we capture this? We deploy our proprietary survey, which is called the Trust Index, and employees would give their feedback across a broad set of parameters, as you may be able to see on your screen. And we look at the positive experience that employees have reported in all of these parameters to ascertain whether, from an employee standpoint, is the organization a great place to work or not. This part of the evaluation is called the Trust Index. And you might be wondering, why is it called the Trust Index? So in all the decades worth of research that we have done, we have found that trust is the cornerstone for any relationship. And thus, in a workplace relationship context also, it's very important that employees experience trust with all of their key stakeholders within the organization, whether it's their management, whether it's the work that they're doing, or with their colleagues and co-workers. So the primary lens for us to assess whether an organization is a great place to work or not is, of course, by hearing from the employees itself. And as many of you may be aware, our certification is solely based on this part of the evaluation. So if an organization does achieve a minimum of 70% positive responses in this part of the evaluation, and of course, they also clear our audits and checks, then the organization is eligible to get certified by us for a period of 1 year. Now, along with looking at what the employees are experiencing, we also measure what is the strength and the maturity of people practices in the organization. So, along with the survey, any organization undertaking the assessment may also choose to get their people practices evaluated. And this part of the assessment is what we call the culture audit. Now, while this is not necessary for an organization from a certification standpoint, but we also publish the list of best workplaces in any industry and across the country as well. So when we do that, we also look at the strength of the people practices along with what the employees are saying by way of the survey. So to reiterate, there are two lenses that we look at as part of our evaluation. The primary one, of course, is the trust index, which is the survey that we roll out to the employees. And the second one is an evaluation of people practices, which is called the culture audit. Now that we've understood how do we really evaluate and assess organizations, we'll now start talking about the main agenda or the main subject for today, which is what are those common myths or misconceptions that a lot of organizations do have when they're considering working with us or when they approach us. We've arrived at some of these by way of feedback from all of you when you did register for the webinar, and by way of conversations that we've been having with our partner organizations and prospective partner organizations as well. So let's get started. The very first one that we often come across, and this is a question or a notion that a lot of organizations may have, which is the assessment and the certification process very, very tedious? Does it require a lot of bandwidth, a lot of people, a lot of effort at our end? And does it take very long to complete? In fact, the other day in one of the conversations we were having, one prospective organization thought it actually takes 6 months to complete the entire process. And this is the very first myth that we'd like to bust. The process is actually fairly simple. It's a 4-step process which can enable any organization to conduct the survey and also get Great Place to Work certified. And we enable every partner organization to have access to an online dashboard and the support of a relationship manager, which can help them throughout the process. It's broadly 4 steps, and from a timeline standpoint, it takes anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks for any organization to begin and complete the process end to end. To answer once again, it's not very tedious and it does not definitely take 6 months. 4 to 6 weeks is 6 to 8 weeks, my apologies, is the duration that you should budget to undertake this assessment. And this is entirely a technology driven and a self-assisted assessment where you will have access to an online portal and relationship management support from our side on all of the steps that you need to complete. The second most common question that we get is that the assessment and the certification is only done during a certain period of time in the year. So a lot of organizations, of course, have their preference in terms of when they would like to do the assessment, basis how their internal calendar and action planning works. But from our side, because we know organizations belonging to different industries of different sizes may want to follow a different cycle. So we actually run the certification process throughout the year. We have surveys launching every week of the year, and an organization may actually choose to undertake this process any time that they want for certification. The only caveat to keep in mind is that our best workplaces rankings, which is India's best companies to work for and best workplaces in any particular industry, are published only at a certain period in time of the year. So you may want to ensure that you time it in a way that you are doing it before any deadline that may pertain to your organization. In any case, should you decide to do the process after that, there is no essential loss that you may face. It's only that your eligibility for our best workplaces rankings would move to the following cycle. So it's a rolling calendar that we follow. But if the purpose is to conduct the assessment and do the certification, that is available throughout the course of the year, and you can pick and choose which week you may want to launch your survey basis your convenience, and we have slots available throughout the year, as I mentioned. The next myth, and this is a very interesting one, and we get this possibly the most often out of all the others, where organizations tell us that we aren't currently ready, or there is a lot of preparation that we need to do before we can actually come and begin the entire process. A lot of this actually stems from the reservation of what happens if we don't get certified. Will it lead to any kind of disrepute for us, or will we have set the wrong expectations? So we always say that becoming a great place to work and sustaining a great place to work culture is a journey, and organizations also use this as a tool of self assessment and self evaluation for them to understand where they are and how they can get better. And our network of organizations that we work with helps us benchmark against the right set of peers from a talent and a market standpoint also. So for any organization, no time is actually a bad time to undertake the assessment and the certification, because no time is a bad time to actually listen to your employees and listen to the feedback that they are giving. There is no specific preparation or readiness that an organization needs. There is no essential pre work that any organization needs to undertake. All the steps that need to be completed as a part of the certification process are done as part of the process itself. So there's nothing that you need to do in advance or in preparation to begin this process with us. And we would, in fact, recommend that you undertake the process with a mindset of not just getting certified, but also seeking the right inputs and getting the right inputs so that you can improve, even if you are amongst the best workplaces, or even amongst the ones that are certified. Some organizations also do ask, are there some set of practices that we need to have in place? Or is there some survey that we can conduct beforehand itself to check whether we are on the right track or not? Many organizations do already have some sort of a feedback mechanism in place in their organization, whether formal or informal. So you can actually use some of those mechanisms itself to get a baseline of where you are from an employee sentiment standpoint. And if not, that is something that we can also help you do as part of partnering with you, so that you get a sense of where you stand. But in 90% of the cases, our recommendation is to go do the process directly, because that's the best way you will get a complete evaluation and an honest evaluation of where you are and how you need to proceed forward as well. The next question that we get very often is getting the certification and the recognition only a branding and a marketing agenda? Is that the only benefit that we will get out of this entire process? So while we have seen that a lot of organizations have benefited from being able to use their certification for employer branding, that has definitely helped them attract quality talent and establish credibility in the market when it comes to any kind of stakeholders whether it's your vendors, your suppliers, or customers as well. So that is definitely a given. But a lot of organizations also see benefit of this entire assessment from a learning standpoint. And now, when I say learning, I mean learning about what is the state of employee experience within the organization. So, as part of the process, what we also do is give you detailed feedback across all of the parameters that we measure in our survey. This will help you identify what are those areas that are working well and what are those areas that actually can be better. We can also help you benchmark against organizations that are your talent peers or competitors, because we have the largest repository of organizations working with us in this space. So you will know what is it that you are doing better, which you need to talk about more, and at the same time, what might be something that your peers might be doing, which would be good to learn from. Along with this, we also engage with the leadership team to help them identify what should be the roadmap for the organization in the year to come, and what are the specific actions that they need to undertake to make the change that they're intending when it comes to culture. And this, coupled with a lot of best practices from leading organizations, also makes it a very lucrative proposition in terms of just working on aspects of your culture and bettering the organization from an employee sentiment standpoint. The next one that we've heard in some cases is the impression that the certification can be achieved by paying a certain sum of money, or making a certain investment, or undergoing any kind of intervention which requires an investment, etc. So this is something we're very, very clear about and very proud about as an organization, that the only way an organization can get Great Place to Work certified is by meeting the threshold and the criteria that we have set across in our assessment. The investment you make, the interventions you do, or the money bit will not have any impact on the outcome of certification. It is purely basis the assessment that we conduct and meeting the threshold that we have set, which is 70% positive responses as part of our Trust Index survey. So, once and for all, we'd like to clarify this for everyone's understanding. There is no way that there's any kind of investment or any sum of money that can guarantee this for a particular organization. It is just the assessment and the outcome. And at the end, it's down to the employees and how they feel about the organization. This is one that we get from a lot of our colleagues in the HR space, that is this an agenda that should be predominantly driven only by HR or marketing, in case the primary objective is employer branding or any kind of promotions. So we always believe that creating a great place to work cannot only be an HR or a marketing agenda. Of course, HR has to be the chief custodian or the facilitator of this entire exercise. But as an initiative, this is something that has to be driven from the top only. And we often say that the best workplaces have one thing in common amongst other things, which is that culture sits on the top three priorities of the leadership team, and not just, of course, human resources or marketing. So it's imperative that when you undertake this agenda, it should be driven from the top, and leadership has a very critical role to play in ensuring that this sort of an initiative is successful. And we've helped a lot of organizations and a lot of HR teams actually create that buy-in from the leadership team, and help address some of the concerns and reservations that they have around it. And more importantly, make them realize what is their role and why is it necessary for them to focus on culture and their people strategy as importantly as they would the business strategy as well. The last one that we will take, and this is also one that we get very often, where an organization would tell us that, this is not very relevant for our kind of a size or our kind of an industry because we are very niche and our talent is very niche. What we have observed, and this is not just in India, but across the globe, any organization, no matter the size, no matter the industry, can be a great place to work. And this assessment and certification will hold relevance even in that unique context. Uh, and why I say this is because what we're essentially trying to evaluate is employee experience. And an experience of an employee is going to be there regardless of whether it's an organization that's IT, manufacturing, aerospace, retail, and so on and so forth. So at the end, we are measuring what is their experience, what is their sentiment, and how can an organization within their own context, within their own complexities and their challenges, address that sentiment for those set of employees itself. uh, and we've had the experience of working with a very diverse set of organizations. We cater to over 20-25 industries annually in India. So there is no particular industry where this will not be relevant. Of course, if there is any request that organizations may have in terms of curating curating the entire engagement with Great Place to Work in such a way that it's more meaningful and more contextualized, we are more than happy to do that. But given that our assessment and our model uh, looks at employee experience and employee sentiment, that is something that is common across the length and breadth of organizations that we study. Before we go to the question answer segment, and just a reminder to all of you, you will have a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You can keep keying in your questions there, and we will attempt to try and answer them all today itself. But before we move to our Q&A, just a reminder to those of you who are planning to undertake the Great Place to Work assessment in the near future. We are at the closure of our study for this year. We will be aiming to close our registrations by the end of this month. And of course, our survey slots are limited and of course will be given out only on first come first serve basis. So in case you are considering undertaking this assessment in the near future, do reach out to your Great Place to Work representative, or uh, my coordinates are also there. You can also visit our website and drop in your details. We'll be happy to discuss this with you and take it forward. Like I said, we will be closing our registrations by the end of this month. But should you wish to get a slot of your preference over the next 2 months, then do sign up as early as possible. So we'll now move into the Q&A segment. So we have a couple of questions that have already started coming in. We'll start taking these one by one. So the first question that we have is, how is a work from home model going to be observed going forward, and how are we going to factor it in the workplace? So this is a very interesting question. Thank you to the person who has asked this. We often have been getting a question for the last 2 years on what is the future. Is it going to be work from office? Is it going to be work from home? Is it going to be hybrid? And does it change with the kind of industry and the kind of setup that you're in? So what we have realized is it's actually very dependent on the kind of work that is expected to be done by the individual. And the challenge that a lot of organizations have been facing, especially when they're trying to get people back to work, is people are not clear on why it is necessary. They're of the opinion that if work is happening, then why do we need to be in office? Why can't we work from home? And what is the challenge? So, in our opinion, hybrid is probably the way to go, where it may not entirely be work from home, may not entirely be work from office. And employees are increasingly looking for for flexibility as part of the overall culture value proposition in an organization. And organizations that are able to provide flexibility will seem to have an edge over others from a talent attraction standpoint. That being said, there is also the argument that for some roles and wherever there are concerns around data security and other such compliances, people have to be in office, and rightly so. So, in such cases, it's been very important that the organizations clarify the why. Why are we requesting people to come back? So, that communication has to be very clear and very transparent. And we've seen a lot of organizations do it successfully, where they will talk about the need to be in office once in a while for the purpose of collaboration or for the purpose of camaraderie or celebration or anything of that sort, or undertaking any critical projects also that may be there. So in our mind, flexibility is going to be a very critical value proposition going forward. And in case there is a scenario where you are not able to offer flexibility, it you should be very clear on the why or the rationale for. The next question that I'd like to take is, what is the cutoff date or month for ranking in a year? So for our annual list of India's best workplaces, we typically keep the cutoff at around November end for registrations, and an organization must complete their process latest by December end or early Jan. So if an organization is able to do that, they will be eligible for a ranking for the coming year, which typically gets published in the month of June. There's another question on whether the session is being recorded and will the presentation be shared. So yes, we will be sharing the presentation and the recording for all of your reference via an email that will be sent to all of you. So you can refer to it in case you've dropped off or missed any part of the session that we've had today. The next question I'd like to take up is, can we customize the survey questions or is it set by us? So for the purpose of certification, the questionnaire cannot be customized. It's a standard instrument that we run across all organizations, and we have to maintain a common standard in terms of the criteria as well. However, we do partner with organizations to run their internal surveys, whether it's their employee satisfaction survey or their employee experience survey, which is distinct from the certification. So if you're looking to do this only as an internal engagement and not for the purpose of certification or recognition, then we can customize the instrument to your liking. But for certification and recognition, it will be the standard set of questions that we will be deploying to your employees. Another question, I think from the same individual is, do you give peer best practices of companies who are in the same business, or is it more generalist? So the answer is, it's a mix of both. We will share a broad variety of practices. This will be for organizations across various industries. Now, of course, you may find that the ones from your industry will be more relevant, but the others are also actually great from a learning standpoint, because the principles that they apply will be similar, and you will be able to use the same principles and modify that practice to fit in your context as well. So we do share it across a range of industries, but you will have the option of looking at best practices for a particular industry also, should you want to do that. But as far as possible, we try and share best practices across a broad variety, so that creativity and ideas at least can get flowing. But if you may need some practices which are more specific to your industry, that's something that can be helped also. The next question that I'd like to take up is what is the criteria for ranking, and how is it that organizations can feature there? So, like I mentioned in the earlier part of my session, there will be two parts to the evaluation that we will conduct. The first is the survey for your employees, which is called the Trust Index. So, we will be sending them the survey and they will respond basis their experience across the parameters that we have. The second is you will also have to give us a submission of your people practices, which we will evaluate in terms of what is the quality, strength, and maturity of those practices. A combination of the survey and the people practice evaluation, which is called the culture audit, helps us determine which are the organizations that feature in our rankings. So we assign 3/4 of the weightage to the survey, given that that's the primary lens and the employee voice is center to what we do. And 1/4 of the weightage is given to the people practice evaluation or the culture audit, as is called in our framework. So combination of these two helps us determine which of those organizations that are amongst the best in any particular industry or across the country. And one prerequisite to keep in mind is an organization should be Great Place to Work certified, of course, for them to be eligible. So if an organization does not get Great Place to Work certified, naturally, they will also not be eligible for any of the best workplaces rankings that we publish. There's another question. This is one that we've covered in our webinars earlier, but would love to talk about this once again. What are some of the benefits of this certification? So I would like to answer this maybe in 3 or 4 parts. So number one, this entire process, and it's not just a certification, but also a very detailed assessment we conduct. It will help you understand what is the current level of employee experience in the organization, what are areas that are working well for you and can get better. The second is you can benchmark against organizations that are your peers and your competitors to understand what are some of the things that you are doing better, which you can talk about more, and at the same time learn from them on some of their best practices also. And all of this, of course, helps you form up a very strong action agenda that you can undertake within the organization. Along with this, on achieving the certification, you can use this for the purpose of employer branding, which will help you attract the right quality of talent that you want for your organization. So, most organizations use this very actively as part of their talent acquisition strategy because people and employees want to work for an organization that's a great place to work, and they look at our certification and our lists before deciding where to work. So this is great from a talent attraction standpoint. It also helps for employees, existing employees in your organization, to know that they're part of an organization that is a great place to work and doing better than a lot of the peers in the industry. So we've seen that organizations that have been consistently certified have also experienced higher retention amongst their employees and more specifically their key talent. And lastly, organizations that have managed to do this consistently, which is focus on employee experience and get certified, have also seen results from a business standpoint, whether it is financial performance, whether it is customer satisfaction, whether it's productivity. All of these matrices have actually gone in the right direction as a result of them focusing on culture. The outcome of which is one of the outcomes of which, of course, is the certification. Now, many of you have also asked questions around the commercials and the fee structure for the Great Place to Work certification. So, the investment will depend on what sort of insights and detailed reports and interventions that you may want to engage with us. This will, of course, differ basis the size of the organization in terms of number of employees. So you may get in touch with us, either me or your Great Place to Work representative that you may be in touch with, and they'll be happy to take you through the commercials and explain all the various options that are available. Like I said earlier, the Great Place to Work certification and recognition has no fee attached to it. Any fee that we will be charging will purely be for the reports, the insights, and any kind of interventions that you may want to do. And that will, of course, not have any impact on the outcome of your certification. That is purely basis the scores that you get in the survey that we conduct. This is a very interesting question. How much is the salary and the compensation factor in the survey of the employee? As I do not see anyone satisfied irrespective of the best salary. So yes, this is in fact a difficult area for most organizations, even some of the best workplaces to score well in. You will usually see relatively lower scores in this area for at least 8 out of 10 organizations on an average. So in our questionnaire, which is in our survey questionnaire, which is about over 60 statements, there is one question which talks about equity in pay, which is, are people paid fairly for the work that they're doing? So there is one question out of the 60 plus that talks about compensation. And there is another question that talks about uh, does the organization share gains of business back with its people in the form of any sort of gain sharing? So there are two questions that pertain to salary and fair pay and gain sharing in our instrument out of all of the 60 plus that we have. So all questions in our instrument have an equal amount of weightage. So the salary element will not have a higher weightage or a lower weightage as compared to other areas. It's equal, but it's only, like I mentioned, two questions out of the 60 plus that are there. So even if you are foreseeing that you may not have the best scores in this particular area, uh, it may still not be as concerning because there's a whole host of other parameters that we look at as part of our evaluation. The next question that I'd like to take up, and this is one that we also get very often, is what if an organization scores less than 70% as part of our survey? What happens then? So, of course, this would mean that the organization is not eligible to be Great Place to Work certified, in which case we will help the organization with the right inputs in terms of where they could have actually done better and what are some actions that they could undertake, what are some best practices to keep in mind, and what are those areas that they need to focus on. And should this organization want to apply for the certification again, you can actually undertake the process within a period of 6 months, minimum of 6 months from your last assessment. But what we will also do is, basis the scores that you have and the focus areas that you have, we will recommend a time frame that you should uh, take to actually implement some of the actions we are suggesting, and then come back for the assessment. So while you can undertake the assessment in a span of 6 months, in some cases, basis your results, we might come back and say that it might be prudent to take 9 months or maybe 1 year instead of that 6 month period. But bare minimum, like I mentioned, is 6 months for you to undertake the process again. Another thing to keep in mind is that we only publish the names of organizations that get certified. So should an organization not get certified or not meet that criteria, at no point will Great Place to Work as an organization or any of our people be revealing at any stage that we are working with this organization or this organization has partnered with us. We believe in positive recognition. So we will only publish the names of organizations and also in any kind of conversations, take names of those only that are certified and recognized by us. The next question is, how do you attract employees to a work from office setup? It's a very interesting question. I did cover it briefly, but thank you so much for asking it once again. What is very important is that you clarify the why and the rationale for bringing people back to office. Because in a lot of cases that we have seen, there has been high resistance from employees saying that since work is getting done and productivity is not getting hampered, why is it necessary for us to come to office? So it will be very important that your leaders actually give that clarity and be very transparent in their communication around why is it necessary. It could be for collaboration, it could be for the purpose of data security or compliance. It could be for camaraderie or any kind of celebrations. It could be to reduce the mental fatigue that comes from work from home. And in a lot of cases, it could be because productivity has been affected in the work from home setup as well. So it's very important that this rationale is shared with employees in trying to get them back to office. And an additional step that you can also take is organize some kind of engaging activities for them, which also helps them cut through some of the monotony that they may face in the commute and other concerns they may have. Before we move to our last set of questions, we'd like to quickly take your feedback on how the session has been so far and all the points and all the aspects that we have discussed. So our team will be launching a very short poll, which will take you just a couple of seconds to give your feedback on. And as soon as that is done, we will just go back to the remaining set of questions. Team, can we queue in the poll, please? So all of you must be seeing a poll on your screen. You can just quickly give your feedback around what you felt about this particular webinar and this session. And we'll quickly then get back to the remaining set of questions. We'll give it another 10 seconds in case you haven't responded yet. Wonderful. Thank you so much. The next question that we'd like to take up is there a validity for the certification? And do you do a reevaluation after a few years? So the answer is yes, there is a validity. The certification is valid for a period of 1 year. So typically organizations do this as an annual process. And every year, an organization will have to undertake the assessment, which includes the survey to measure employee experience, meet the criteria, and get certified by us. So to reiterate, 1 year is the validity, and you can do this as an annual process and, of course, keep renewing it each and every year. The next question that we have is, this is a very interesting one. If we have multiple heterogeneous businesses in our company, can we take the survey for one business or one area or one geography, or does it have to cover all the employees? Thank you so much for asking this. This is one that we also come across very often. From our standpoint, we believe that a great place to work is a great place to work for all, which is for all segments of its employees, regardless of their location, their business, their level, or what their role is. So in order to certify an organization, every part of the business or geography will have to be covered. Depending on the size of the organization, we may cover all the employees or we may conduct a sample, but the representation will be across. So no particular business, geography, or unit can be left out as part of this exercise. They will have to be there because, like I said, every segment has to be represented and every voice is important. And I think there's another question which is on the same lines. Can I choose my target audience basis org preferences? Which is, it could be people with 1 year tenure or 2 years plus tenure. The answer is no. We will actually look at covering the entire horizon of employees, or all set of employees, and representation across tenures, across departments, across all demographics. And we want to capture sentiment all across. And it's important that each and every part of the organization has the opportunity to experience a positive work environment, and hence it's crucial. So unfortunately, you may not be able to choose your target audience, and it will have to involve representation across the board. Uh, the next question that I'd like to take up is, thank you for the information. What if we apply after the deadline? Will we be considered for next year's ranking? The answer is yes. You will be considered for the following year's ranking should you miss the deadline. So you will not be in any way completely missing out on it. It will just move to the following cycle. So should you miss the deadline, the scores will be considered for the following year. Another very interesting question that we've got is, what is the methodology for the survey if the maximum population is not IT or tech savvy? So we run the survey in various modes. For organizations where majority of your population may not be tech savvy or computer savvy in that manner, we can actually run the survey by way of SMS if all of that all of that segment or that population have access to smartphones, and we can enable any kind of regional languages also. So should you have a certain segment of your population which is not comfortable with English, that's no problem at all. We can run the survey in any Indian regional language of your choice. We also have modes where we can do the survey basis a kiosk, or in scenarios where no other mode is possible, paper-based surveys as well. But that is absolutely last resort should the need arise. But we have various other methods apart from email and online, should the population not be savvy. And like I mentioned, regional languages will be available to you as well. Uh, Another question that we have is, does GPTW provide a sample question set before the real assessment? So to answer this, our questionnaire is actually available, in public domain. So you can write to us and we can share the questionnaire that we do. This can give you a sense of what we exactly ask in our assessment, and what are the questions that employees have to answer. So this is available to you while you're evaluating whether to undertake this assessment or not. You can request us for it, and we'll be happy to share this with you. This is a very interesting one, and I think a very specific advice that this individual has seeked. Our office has increased the timings from 8:30 to 9 hours, and employees are not satisfied with it. Our directors have become very rigid in changing this rule. What should we do as HR? So the key here, in my opinion, will be communication. It's very important for our employees to understand why this change has been made, and what is going to be the impact uh, as a result of this change. Are we looking at any sort of business results or productivity or any other measures moving in the right direction? So communication will be the key. It'll be very important to reiterate to your employees why this change is being made, and it's best that this is done from the leadership team itself. As HR, what you can do is in small groups in various departments, either by way of focus groups or any kind of roadshow, you can reiterate the rationale and clarify why this change is being made, and what is it going to result to, as part of business or otherwise. So sharing that rationale will be absolutely critical. Uh, there's another question on whom should we connect with if we'd like to participate. So we'll share our coordinates with you right after this webinar. Alternately, you can also go in on our website and there's a contact us form. You can fill in your details and our teams will get in touch with you within a day or two. And at the same time, you will also receive more information on the entire process and the framework. So uh, we'll share our coordinates with you, and you can also visit our website should you need more information. Uh, the next question that is there is, can you share the clientele in mail? So I'm assuming you'd want to know which are the organizations that have been partnering with us. So all organizations that have been certified or recognized by us are actually put up on our website. So you can visit our website and under the certified companies tab, you will have the names of organizations along with the certification and the validity. So you can actually go and see that. We also have various industry and national rankings that we do. So our website also has some research reports that we have conducted, which will have some best practices along with, of course, the names of these organizations. Like I said, it will only be the clients that have been certified or recognized by us that you will find on our website. In case an organization has not been certified or recognized by us, those names, of course, we will not be able to share. The last question that we will take for today before we close is 60 questions too high? Uh, and does this need to be done in one go or can it be saved as a draft? Uh, So yes, of course, our feedback mechanism is quite comprehensive. 60 plus statements is not less, of course, and that is largely because we want to try and encapsulate each and every part of the employee experience. So with such a comprehensive instrument, we also stand at the unique advantage of being able to pinpoint the areas that are working well and that need to improve also. Hence, 60 questions for us to be able to encapsulate everything. All of these questions do not need to be answered in one go. Typically, the survey is run for a period of 2 weeks. And for organizations that are under 100 employees in terms of their headcount, it is run for a period of 1 week. So during this time, an employee may decide to save the responses and come back to it and give it at a later point also. It does not need to be answered in one sitting. So that is some flexibility that we do give. And we, of course, keep sending reminders to employees that have not responded so that there is that engagement also and they're encouraged to give their feedback. So with that, once again, thank you to all of you for taking out time and joining us for this webinar today. There are some questions that unfortunately we may not have been able to cover because of time being limited, but we would like to answer many of these questions over a face-to-face interaction, whether in person or virtually. So by all means, do reach out to us. We'll be happy to set up a conversation, answer your queries, and help you structure the assessment such that it benefits your organization and the journey that you have towards building a great place to work. The deck and the recording will be made available to you by our team after the webinar, so you can stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for the next series of webinars that we have. We will be conducting many on the same lines and on various other topics as well. So do keep sending us your suggestions also on some of the topics that you would like us to cover. We'll be more than happy to cover these as part of our webinar series. Thank you so much and hope all of you have a great rest of the day ahead. Thank you so much.